Hello, this is Dr. Benoit, and we are going to review some more for our course. So let me get everything set up here. We are in Module 2, and we are going to take a look at the teaching cycle with pre-assessment, Stage 2, Task 1. So if you click on this link, it's going to take you to the overview of this task. Notice that we will be referring to pages 6 through 7 of the template. We'll look at that in just a moment. And this is what we're going to be covering in this particular stage. There are three little parts to this. Identifying assessments. So we're going to use a pretest, either from your curriculum, you can make your own, or you can actually find one through online sources. The test should be representative of the current content being taught in the course. It should only be about 3 to 4 multiple choice, maybe true false items, and one short answer or fill in the blank. So it needs to be approximately about 5 items. It's okay if it's a little bit more or a little bit fewer than that, but don't do too few or too many because you won't have enough data then to really help you complete the analysis tasks if you don't have enough. So roughly 5 items of at least 2 different types. So like multiple choice and true false. Multiple choice and short answer or fill in the blank, or true false and some sort of constructive response. So ideally there should be some type of writing and then some type of choice. Don't do too many items because that makes your item analysis really hard. It makes it very time consuming. The B portion of this is annotating those assessments. So we're going to actually be annotating it for 4 things. They're stated right here, but we'll actually look at them in the template in a moment. And then lastly, we're going to be creating those exemplars. And essentially an exemplar is just a fancy way to say a test key. So when you're done with this for this week, this is the way that you're going to upload it into the discussion board on Moodle. So it needs to be one document. You can either use that PowerPoint method or you can use the Word or PDF method. And this is the pattern that you need to be using for it. Last name, first name, stage 2, task 1. So as usual, we've got our rubric here. Please go back and look at the rubric. I'm not going to be doing that as part of this assignment. I'm sorry, as part of this video, but please do that. I'm actually going to be covering the expectations when we look at the template, which we're going to do right now. So this is the template that we use for the entire teaching cycle with pre-assessment. Last week we did stage 1, and now we're moving on to stage 2. So please notice that's going to begin right here on page 6, stage 2, task 1. That's what we're. Notice these are the high leverage practices and the culturally responsive teaching competencies that we're covering. So the first artifact, as I mentioned, the A portion is identifying assessments. So this top part of the template helps you determine where to get appropriate assessments from. As I mentioned, you can get them from the curriculum that your focus class is using. You can get them from a mentor, perhaps, that's taught the focus class before. You can find them from online sources. Just make sure that they're aligned with whatever the content of your focus class is. This gives you some idea of how you want to make sure that you're identifying the correct type of assessment. So right here in this, where I have it grayed out, read over that, and it's going to really help you make sure that you are selecting the correct type of assessments. Ideally, we want to make sure that the standards that the pre-test and post-test, because you're going to do a pre-test and a post-test, we want to make sure that those are aligned to what you're actually teaching in your lesson. And so this is that whole thing about make sure you're actually testing what you teach and make sure you're actually teaching what you test. That's where that comes from. So if you're not sure where to find your standards, those are on the Louisiana Department of Education website. And this is also something that your mentor teacher may be able to help you with as well. He or she may have some like printed, like in a binder. If you have any trouble with that, please reach out and let me know. That's something that we actually cover in a previous class, but I do realize that you might need a little bit of assistance with that. So as I mentioned, we need to have multiple ways of demonstrating the knowledge and skill. So this simply means that we want to have a mixture of like multiple choice with a short answer or true and false with a fill in the blank. So it needs to have multiple and it needs to include a quality scoring instrument. So for example, if for the short answer, we need to have some sort of rubric or checklist that shows how the students are going to be able to score points essentially on that portion. If it's multiple choice, that's pretty easy. It's just going to be a test key. But any type of fill in the blank that might have multiple options for the answers or any type of constructive response that's a little bit more open-ended, we need some type of rubric or checklist that is presented as part of the pre-test or post-test. So for these, remember, you will be using your curriculum or online sources or something from a mentor. Then you're going to actually annotate the assessments. So you're annotating for academic vocabulary, misconceptions or biases in the content, misconceptions or biases in the formatting. So maybe there's confusing wording, or maybe the question is a little bit worded a little bit funny. And then parts of the text or question that align to the standard. So your standards need to be labeled on the assessment. So what is this? It might only be one standard. You know, some of them, as for example, some of the ELA standards are pretty broad when it gets to like conventions of language. So it might only be one, but within each question, which part of the standard is being tested. And so have that annotated for your vocabulary. You need to have the tiers marked. Tier 1 and Tier 2 vocabulary needs to be marked in there. Again, I know you studied that in a previous course. We also review it again in this course, but I'm sorry, not Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 3 are those very specific vocabulary words that are specific to your content area. Like those are the ones that we teach them explicitly in our lessons. Tier 2 are what we consider academic vocabulary. And those are the ones that they're part of like overall schooling, instruction and assessment, but our students might need some more support with it. So for example, we say the word summarize. That's an academic vocabulary word. What does that actually mean? And we need to be able to tell students how summary is different than if we were to say like compare and contrast. So that's what it's talking about, is annotating for those specific words that students would need to know in order to be able to complete the assessment. So you'll want to read over this. And then lastly, creating the exemplar. And this is where, again, you are going to create the key. And it tells you here things that you need to mark for it. So on this particular one, I'm going to show you some samples of this, what it looks like, stage 2. So let's go right here. We're going to click down. We're going to go where it says samples. Notice I have a lot of samples. I have some already pulled up for you. So this is a pre-test. Sorry, let's see. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So here is a pre-test. And this is the exemplar. Everything is totally worked out for it. Let me make sure that I actually pulled the correct ones for this math. So if we look at the math, this is an annotated pretest. Yes, let me make sure. I've got a couple here. So, okay, an annotated pretest. And so here is all of the, here's the key up at the top. Standards are labeled. Color coding was used here to make it super clear. So this is what we're talking about for the pretest. And then a post-test. So notice that the post-test is going to be similar, but it's going to have different wording. We don't want to give the exact same post-test. Our students can memorize our tests. So we want to make sure that they're not memorizing, that they're not regurgitating the tested materials. They're actually learning the content. So again, here we go. That was post-test. Then here is an exemplar. So this is the key. Test exemplar, and it's all worked out. And then there's also one for the post-test. So we also have some like this for music. So for example, here is the, can't remember if this is the annotated. Yeah. So there's a pre-test and a post-test. And this particular resident, he went ahead and he just put the annotations and the key all together. That's completely fine. This one was the pre-test and this one is the post-test. And so it was similar. It's the same content. It just wasn't done the identical way. So if you look in the samples, they're labeled very clearly what each portion of it is. So you have all week to work on that. And again, this is how you're going to upload it to the discussion board by the deadline posted on the course calendar and in the discussion board. And then don't forget to circle back and see how your peers did it and give them some feedback. All right, have a great week. Reach out if you have any questions.